So, out of all the series in the second round that I'm excited for, outside of Bucks vs Nets, I'm excited for Suns vs Nuggets. This is going to be a very fun series for many reasons. First of all, I want to talk about something that could have been, but won't end up being, obviously. And something that I think would have been really fun would have been Jamal Murray versus Devin Booker. If you don't know Jamal Murray and Devin Booker, they both went to Kentucky. They were drafted a year apart from each other. Devin Booker was drafted 13th overall in 2015. He was somebody that was a sixth man on the team, and he was somebody that, at Kentucky was viewed as this late lottery mid-first round prospect. Again, he did come off the bench at Kentucky in that platoon system, where no one really averaged a lot of points. Like Karl-Anthony Towns, go look at Karl-Anthony Towns' stats from his college season at Kentucky. He didn't put up great numbers. Neither did Booker. But he still showed enough promise to go late lottery to the Suns, and obviously he's developed into one of the best shooting guards in the league. A year later, Jamal Murray commits to Kentucky, and he ends up playing for them. Unlike Booker, however, Murray was somebody that was the featured player at Kentucky. I believe he averaged the most points per game by a freshman in Kentucky history, and that says something. Given the names that have been at Kentucky, Anthony Davis, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Gilgeous Alexander, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, who many forget was an absolute animal at Kentucky. Bam Adebayo went through, guys like that. It's just a very prestigious school. Julius Randle went there as well. It's just a very prestigious school that's produced a lot of NBA players. And for Jamal to be among, because most of them are one and done players, for Jamal to average the most points per game as a freshman among all those guys is impressive. He went 7th overall. And both of them kind of had similar rookie years, I would say. Booker was somebody that was brought along slowly. He put up slightly better numbers than Jamal. Jamal averaged almost 10 points a game. He got to 9.9 and came off the bench a lot. And then eventually we've seen both of these guys grow. Obviously, I think Booker is better than Murray. And, but that doesn't change the fact that they're both insane shot creating kind of heat set guys, because when both of them are on fire, they're very fun to watch. And Jamal Murray, when he's on fire, is one of the most fun players to watch in the league. However, unfortunately, due to the injuries that Jamal Murray has suffered this year, that is season ending, we won't get that matchup. But I did want to bring it up because that would have been a very fun storyline, in my opinion, to have, between these two great Kentucky guards, great scoring guards, etc., etc. Yeah, besides that though, with this series, the other big narrative, and this is probably the most funny one, it's not really a narrative because we know Jokic is going to win MVP at this point, but this is the actual MVP that anyone that watches the NBA and understands the NBA knows is the MVP in Jokic, versus the guys the media wanted to post in Chris Paul. Chris Paul's probably going to be playing a bit hurt, so he's probably not going to put up as much of a fight as Jokic will. At the same time, when you watch these sort of, games though, Chris Paul can still have an impact. It's not even a debate about who's MVP, Chris Paul or Nikola Jokic, because Chris Paul didn't even finish top 3 in MVP voting, and Jokic is likely going to win it. And he's well deserving of it, mind you. So that should be a fun little storyline there, just to make fun of the media. I do think, though, speaking of Jokic, the matchup between Jokic and Ayton is going to be more interesting than people are probably going to want to give it credit for. When you think about it this way, when you watch the games that Jokic and Ayton played together, it was Ayton held his own. That's the best way I could put it. Ayton more than held his own. The numbers back this up as well. So I think it's a more interesting matchup. I don't think Ayton's gonna get embarrassed like some people think he is, because he's a much better defensive big than I think people want to give him credit for. He has great mobility. I'll say this, you know, if it wasn't for Zion Williamson, DeAndre Ayton would be like the most freaky athlete I've seen at a power forward center spot. So that goes to show you how gifted he is athletically. You know, his movement skills are insane, obviously. He has great size. Guys built like Optimus Prime. And he's done improvement on the defensive end. So, again, I don't think you can't stop Jokic. That's the thing. You can't stop him because, like, even if he's not scoring, he's passing. And even if he's not passing, he's scoring. There's just no... he's one of those guys that you can only contain. You can't stop him. You can only contain him. But I do think Ayton can more than hold his own against him. And I think Ayton can play really well in this series as well. Obviously, I think that, you know, even without the Devin Booker, Jamal Murray thing, which would have been really fun because, you know, they were back-to-back Kentucky guards that were drafted in the lottery in 2015, 2016, we still are going to get a very fun scoring matchup. Devin Booker, obviously, who was incredible in that Lakers series, by the way. You know, props to him for being on for 47 points in Game 6 to send the Lakers home. A team that was probably one of the favorites to win the title if they were healthy. Yeah, that's a very much a big accomplishment. But then you have Michael Porter Jr., who is one of the other kind of bright young scorers in this league. A very good shooter and just explosive as a scorer. You know, people like to call him the next KD. He's not really KD at all. I'll be quite honest with you. He plays nothing like him. But he's this tall. You know, I don't really have to say much because Michael Porter Jr., we all know how good he is. He had one of the most efficient scoring seasons of all time. He's incredible. So the scoring battles between between Michael Porter Jr. and Devin Booker will be very fun. I think Ayton has a chance to have a solid series. I think Jokic is going to have a great series. I think Chris Paul has a chance to be the X factor. Other guys, when we look at the Suns, Mikal Bridges, I really liked him a lot. He looked really good, in my opinion, in that the Lakers series. I can't believe I was blanking on that. He looked really good. Monte Morris for the Nuggets had some flashes where he looked really good. He looked really good in that game against Portland, where Dame went to like double OT and Dame was like all-time great. He looked really good in that game. Austin Rivers has looked really good in the Portland Trail Blazers series as well. That's been a very fun kind of development for them. You know, when you look at the Suns, can Cameron Payne keep it up? Cameron Payne has looked really good in the playoffs so far. Can Jay Crowder find some consistency with his jumper? You know, he was up and down a bit in the Lakers series, but overall, you know, when he needed to, he hit those shots, and I'm excited. Obviously, I mentioned Mikal already, and I'm very excited to see what happens with this series. This is going to be a fun series because obviously we have Nets vs Bucks starts tonight, and then tomorrow, I believe we have Clippers versus Mavericks, and then. But this is going to be. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling about that. But to get back on the track, with Suns versus Nuggets, it's going to be a fun series. I wanted Portland versus Denver to go 7 games. Because that was, in my opinion, the best series in the playoffs so far. Even if it only went 6 games and the Mavs versus Clippers were going 7. That was the most fun I had watching the playoffs so far, was Denver versus Portland. I think Portland versus, not Portland, Denver versus Phoenix could be even better. And there's so many players in this, obviously. There's a lot of future Hall of Famers. Chris Paul, Nikola Jokic, if he wins MVP and keeps up that pace, he's well on his way to the Hall of Fame. You know, we'll see what guys like Devin Booker and Michael Porter Jr., that's a bit early for them. But, you know, it should be exciting. I'm very excited for this series. I'm excited again. Scoring battles between 2 great young scorers in the league. I'm excited for 2 of the most high IQ basketball players in the league, and Chris Paul and Nikola Jokic trying to outsmart each other. That's going to be fun. Then you got, the glue guys like the Austin Rivers and the Monte Morrises, and then the Mikal Bridges and the Jay Crowders and the Cameron Paynes on the other side. Like, there's just going to be so much fun in this series. And this is a series I want to go 7 games. Out of all this series, I just really want it to go 7 games, if you know what I mean. When you watch a series like this with the storylines that it has, it deserves to go 7 games. And I said I wanted Portland versus Denver to go 7 games. I want Suns versus Nuggets to go 7 games. Now, again, I almost forgot to actually make my prediction for this series. For my prediction for this series, I'm going to pick Suns in 7. I'm picking Phoenix Suns, I believe, are going to win this series in 7 games. It's going to come down to the wire. But at the end of the day, I just like the pieces around Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton more than I like the pieces around Nikola Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. I get to remember, Portland might have won that series if they were able to capitalize on the lack of depth that Denver had. They had to play Marcus Howard in the rotation. I love Campazzo somewhat. He somewhat annoys me just because he does those things that all small players do, which really isn't a big deal, to be honest with you. Nothing against them. He's in the rotation, obviously. It's just that, again, what I saw Cameron Payne do in the first round. And I trust Mikal Bridges a bit. I like him a bit more than some of the other role players on Denver. And, we'll see with the Chris Paul injury. That could be a factor as well. But I just think Phoenix, I just trust them a bit more than Denver. Because, while Michael Porter Jr. is awesome and Nikola Jokic is awesome, being reliant on role players, no matter how good they are. Monte Morris has had good games in the Portland series, and Austin Rivers has had good moments as well. Being reliant on role players is not always something you can lean on. And for me, Phoenix has more players that you can lean on. I wouldn't say that you can run the offense through DeAndre Ayton, but he's a step above a role player. Chris Paul is an X factor. Devin Booker's an X factor. And you look on the other side, you got MPJ, who's their X factor, and Nikola Jokic, who is their X factor as well. And really, Michael Porter Jr. can be a bit streaky at times as well, because he's young. At the end of the day, he still is young, and he's going to have some bad shooting moments, some bad shot selection moments, because when you're a player that likes every shot that you take, it's going to lead to some bad shots. It's going to lead to some off nights. And, I think that when Jokic is really the only consistent, reliable, X factor you have, or central player, heliocentric player, we'll say. I don't even think that's the right word. But, I think that, okay, so here's the best way I can put it. I think that the Suns are less reliant on one player than the Nuggets are. That's why I have them. That's basically what that whole gibberish was. But yeah, that's my official prediction. Suns in 7. Could see it going Denver's way, but I had to make the prediction at the end of the day. And I'm picking the Suns to win the series in 7 games. But it should be a fun series. I'm excited for it as well. And enjoy the first game of Bucks vs Nets tonight, guys.